Hello and welcome to our Grand Pacific Voyage. This is segment 3, part 2, where we go from Benoa, Bali to Komodo Island and then on for a couple of sea days en route to Darwin, Australia. Our first call in Indonesia was Benoa, Bali. Bali is one of the 17,504 islands that make up Indonesia. And our excursion for the day is the interior beauty of Bali. The excursion was a whopping 8.5 hours long, with much of that taken up by the drive time to and from our destinations. Bali is also known as the Island of the Gods, the Land of 1,000 Temples, although there are more like 10,000 temples, or the world's last paradise. As hyperbolic as these slogans may sound, they may not do justice to the actual reality of the island. Our first stop on this tour was in Baja Village, where we would stop and tour a traditional housing compound. This compound is home to 3 generations of the Balinese family that lives here. Besides the obligatory family temple, there were several other buildings and structures inside the compound. Each building, we were told, has a specific purpose or reason for being there. Here's Grandma, Grandpa, and granddaughter. Bali has a population of about 4.5 million, of which 86.9% of the population adhere to Balinese Hinduism. This altar-like area is where they make daily offerings. And here's a quick peek at the traditional Balinese kitchen. This is what appeared to be a sort of outdoor media room. The compound's water supply came from this well. Leaving the compound, and an hour and 20 minutes later, we are at the rice terraces of Bali. Although more people on the island still work in agriculture, tourism is actually the most profitable business now, accounting for 80% of the island's revenue. And I'm going to be quiet and let you take a look at this stunningly beautiful landscape. Because of the length of this excursion, we were treated to a lunch at a local restaurant. This open-air style of restaurant is very typical in Bali. And after lunch, it was time to explore a bit more. Leaving the rice terraces and continuing our journey, we stopped at this temple. This was a temple that was a bit off the beaten path, and we had the grounds pretty much to ourselves. This is one of the entrances to the temple, and people leave offerings to the temple guards, usually food and so forth, but this one apparently liked tobacco and cigarettes. As we descended, we were told we would have to change into typical Balinese clothing in order to tour the temple grounds. Fortunately, I didn't have to take off my pants. Those remained under the temple garb. With that, we were turned loose and given about 45 minutes to walk around and look things over. This was more a tour of the grounds, and we were asked to stay away from the temple proper, as there were locals currently worshiping in the temple. Regardless, various guardians and statues scattered around the property. Soon enough, it was time to begin our almost 1 hour and 45-minute journey back to the ship. Once back at the Silver Muse, we decided to sort of take a little walk about Benoa in the area where the Silver Muse was docked. We were almost immediately treated to more scary temple guys and some of the interesting artwork that is scattered all across the city. There was sort of a tourist market directly outside the ship. This was one of the entrances, and we walked through it because we had no choice. But I didn't record anything because the vendors were somewhat aggressive, and I just wanted to get the heck out of there. Safely back on board, we changed and went to the Venetian Lounge for the show tonight, which was at Kechak, which is a traditional Balinese sort of a cappella presentation that is more a play than anything else. Enjoy. the next day, and it was a day at sea en route to Komodo Island, where we spent most of the day finding out what we were going to see and learning how not to be eaten by one of the Komodo dragons.
Bronstein, an investigative journalist formerly married to actress Sharon Stone, had an unfortunate encounter with a Komodo dragon at the Los Angeles.
And the next morning, there we were in the land of dragons. The sail into Komodo Island was a beautiful one, although it quickly became evident that Komodo Island itself was a desert island. Komodo Island has a surface area of about 291 square kilometers and a human population of about 1,800. But we weren't there to see humans, we were there to see dragons. The dragons lived pretty much undisturbed until the early 1910s, when strange tales told by Dutch sailors based in nearby Flores Island surfaced about a mysterious creature that allegedly was a dragon. And shortly after the turn of the century, it was investigated by a Dutch lieutenant who managed to capture, then kill one of the creatures and brought it back for scientists to investigate. Realizing the significance of the dragons on Komodo Island as an endangered species, the Dutch government issued orders for their protection in 1915. And almost immediately as we entered the park, we saw one of the giant lizards kind of wandering around. The dragons that in the wild can weigh over 150 pounds and grow up to 10 feet long. They are true carnivores and are most definitely the apex predator on the island. In fact, the dragons have been known to stalk and kill the island's deer and even water buffalo. And while we were walking the trails, we spotted this little fella who was probably about 5 feet long from nose to tip of tail. And while he was smaller than many of his brothers and sisters, he's way bigger than your average pet iguana. So is the Komodo dragon a dangerous animal? Well, yes they are. From what I've been able to determine, 36 people have been bitten by Komodo dragons, engendering 5 fatalities in the last 49 years, 2 of them being tourists. As the story goes, one gentleman decided that he had to answer the call of nature and step behind a tree to do so when a dragon dragged him down and hauled him away. The dragon likely upset that someone was urinating in his living room. The other tourist, a Baron Rudolf Redding von Bibereg, a tourist from Switzerland, was attacked by a large Komodo dragon. The group in which he was in, about 30 people, immediately scattered. When the tourist and the rangers returned to the area, only his camera and glasses were found. This old boy we found lazing about the ranger station. He was either overstuffed or possibly even drugged up. We thought at first he was dead, but after studying him a while, we found that he was breathing and occasionally would blink. Eventually it was time to leave Komodo National Park and head back to the Silver Muse. Our tender ride back to the ship was uneventful and gave us a chance to snap a couple of pictures from angles that we would not ordinarily have. As the sun sank low, we were treated to a beautiful sail away from Komodo Island. The next 2 days were days at sea when we were en route to Darwin, Australia. We used those 2 days to kind of kick back and find the more underused activities on the ship. Here we are giving the shuffleboard court a go, poorly I might add. And then after pushing the shuffleboard pucks around a bit, we walked to the other side of the ship and tried a little table tennis, with equally sterling results. Working up that appetite, we went to La Terraza for lunch and settled into a nice table with a view. Take a look and see if you can identify which plate was mine and which one was Song's. Well, I think you knew. After a little dessert, the call went out. Dolphins sighted. They were following along in our wake and just having fun. Tonight was a rather special night. It was our first and only reservation at La Dame. La Dame, of course, is the French bistro-style restaurant on Silver Muse, and there is an upcharge of $60 per person for the meal. La Dame is exactly as advertised, a intimate and elegant French bistro-style restaurant. It's here you can get your French fix, like this taurine au foie gras, escargot, a lobster bisque, a bouillabaisse, a nice sorbet as a palate cleanser, followed by beautifully prepared duck breast, and a lovely Chilean sea bass. They also have a souffle on the menu. Be sure to ask for vanilla sauce or a Grand Marnier souffle, and end the meal with a delightful small plate of petit fours. Following dinner, we made our way to Dolce Vita for an after-dinner drink and a little bit of listening to some Pink Floyd with pianist extraordinaire Derek. Well, thank you for watching segment 3, part 2 of our Grand Pacific Voyage. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date on new releases. Stay tuned for more as we bring you segment 3, part 3, as we make our first stop in Australia at Darwin, Australia. 3 more days at sea, and then Cairns, Australia, with plenty more in the pipeline. And as always, safe and happy travels from Tees Cruise and Travel Muse.